A shocking shooting that sent a former bad boy artist to prison for nearly a decade while Sean Diddy Combs walked away scot-free is revisited in a new eye-opening documentary. The Honorable Shyne looks at the rise and fall, then rise again, of former rapper Jamal Barrow, better known by his stage name Shyne. Shyne was a rising star after he signed to a then Puff Daddy, aka Diddy's Bad Boy record label in the late 90s. But all that would change when a nightclub shooting left 3 people injured and sent Shyne away to prison for nearly 10 years. The documentary began with Shyne rapping as he looked on at the city of New York, a place where he once called home. Then a familiar face appeared in the documentary. It cuts to a moment in 2021 where Shyne was seen telling the story of how he wrote the second verse of his hit song Bad Boys to his former mentor Sean Combs along with Combs' son Christian Combs. Then the documentary cuts back in time after Shyne was deported to Belize following his release from prison. From there, viewers got insight into Shyne's upbringing, his childhood in Belize, his prior estrangement from his father, who was deputy prime minister in Belize but disowned him when he was younger. By the mid-'80s, Shyne moved to the U.S. and made his new home Brooklyn, New York. But to his childhood friend, Shyne was a known troublemaker when he was younger. One of his friends even referred to him as a hoodlum. Then things changed for Shyne that started his trajectory toward music. He was shot in the shoulder when he was younger and says he saw the effects it had on his mom, so he began writing rhymes. His persistence later paid off, and he was eventually discovered in a barbershop. And as the new commodity on the block, he eventually got the attention of none other than Sean Combs, better known back then as Puffy or Puff Daddy. Once he was signed to Bad Boy, Shyne was once again known as a troublemaker within the record label. And things took another turn for the rapper when he got into a violent altercation where he was allegedly shot at by members of Junior Mafia, a group formed by Biggie Smalls. Shyne says when that happened, he began carrying a gun on him for his own protection. While a part of Bad Boy, the kid once from East Flatbush in Brooklyn, New York, was seemingly living the dream. His songs were rising on the charts, he was flying in private jets, had fancy cars, and was mentored by the once enamored Puff Daddy. Then viewers are brought to December 27th of 1999, when Shyne's world changed as he knew it forever. Shyne, Puffy, his then girlfriend Jennifer Lopez, and Puffy's bodyguard Anthony Wolf Jones were at a nightclub in Times Square. Once inside the club, an argument would inevitably lead to gunfire. But for Shyne, the antagonists weren't his enemies. Shyne said he knew the other man involved in the shooting, Matthew Allen, aka Scar from the neighborhood. As the story goes, someone tossed money in Puffy's face, an exchange happened, guns were drawn, then bullets flew inside the packed nightclub. 3 people were shot and injured in the shooting, including Natanya Rubin, who was shot in the face when the bullets rang out. But prior to the shooting, Shyne revealed Scar asked him, "Are you going to ride with him or us?" Him referring to Combs, and Shyne chose himself. Shyne has long admitted he carried a weapon into the club and drew his weapon in self-defense, but he also says he didn't see what Combs was doing during the confrontation. After the shooting, Combs, Jennifer Lopez, and Anthony Wolf Jones fled the club, but were later arrested after Combs' driver blew through several red lights, and they were caught with a gun in the car. They were all detained. Meanwhile, Shyne was arrested at the club. Lopez was released from custody after several hours, but was never charged in the case. But Shyne, Puffy, and Anthony Wolf Jones were all charged. Shyne said he wasn't able to afford bail and was left in jail for a week before his manager leveraged his home so Shyne could make bail. But for Puffy and Wolf, they both made bail quickly and left Shyne to seemingly fend for himself. Shyne says he refused to work with the prosecution and refused to turn on his mentor and didn't want to go against his friends. But not the same could be said for Puffy, who was accused of bribing his driver with $50,000 to say the gun found in their car was his. Shyne recalls at the time his lawyers telling him there wouldn't be a case against him had he ditched the gun at the nightclub. And Combs' former bodyguard, Gene Deal, who was interviewed for the documentary, criticized Shyne for not waiting for security to help him during the melee. But Shyne said waiting for security wasn't an option. There's still so much to get into about this new Shyne documentary, but I want to quickly give thanks to our amazing sponsors that help us continue to bring you these stories, like Odoo. I'm sure a lot of you watching this might be business owners or thinking about starting a side hustle. Well, Odoo can help. Odoo is a free all-in-one business management software with tools to help you run your business. I mean, look, I'm a cat mom. I want my cat to get some brand deals. Using Odoo's website builder, I built a site for my cat Buttons in just minutes, thanks to easy tools like AI copywriting and drag and drop features. 5 minutes later, boom, check it out. I now have buttonsthecat.odoo.com. So I want to thank Odoo for sponsoring our videos. And for our amazing viewers, you can start building your site now and get a free domain for the first first year with our link, odoo.com/LCnews9. Again, that's odoo.com/LCnews9 to try Odoo now for free. The case would ultimately go on trial in 2001. Shyne recalled the witnesses testifying in the case were there to help Wolf and Combs out, and that his defense team never called any witnesses of their own. The former Bad Boy rapper said he felt like his lawyers didn't help him during trial, and said he even made a request to the judge to let him get new attorneys. But Combs' circumstance was completely different. He had a high-powered defense team that even included O.J. Simpson's lawyer, Johnny Cochran. Shyne recalled a lot being at stake. Combs had his Bad Boy label and enterprise and couldn't handle going to jail. Meanwhile, Anthony Wolf Jones was a multiple felon and risked the rest of his life in prison if he was convicted. Combs' former bodyguard, Gene Deal, even recalled the pressure mounting on Combs ahead of the verdict, so much so he sacrificed a bird on the morning the jury was to announce their verdict. We know how the story plays out next. Combs and Wolf walked away and were acquitted on all charges. But for Shyne, it was a completely different story. While he was acquitted on attempted murder and other charges, he was convicted of assault and reckless endangerment and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Shyne recalled when he went away, it was hard to see his musical peers reach the level of success they did. He also slammed his former mentor, saying everyone was partying and having a great time with Diddy while I was left to rot in prison. But during his time behind bars, he decided not to let the prison system consume him. He converted to Judaism and continued with his love of music. He was released from prison in 2009 and was deported to Belize shortly after, and even signed a historic 7-figure deal with Def Jam in 2010. But Shyne seemingly had a tough transition getting back to what he once was in the rap game and eventually explored a different avenue, politics. He said he and Combs, who by this point was going by Diddy, reconciled around 2011-2012, but that reconciliation was short-lived until they began speaking again years later, which Shyne says happened after he fixed himself and wanted to elevate. The two even shared the stage together in 2022 when Combs received the Lifetime Achievement Award from BET. But about a year later, after receiving that award, everything for Combs changed when his former girlfriend, Cassandra Ventura, filed a jaw-dropping lawsuit against the mogul that was settled within a day, but triggered what appears to be the downfall of Combs and his empire as we once knew it. Then the documentary cuts to 2024, when Combs' homes were raided by the feds in March of this year. Shyne says the then investigation into his former mentor and the several lawsuits filed against him rehashed old wounds. He specifically recalled two turning points, one being the video released of Cassie's brutal beating by Combs, but also pointed to Rodney Jones Jr., aka Lil Rod's 2024 lawsuit. In Lil Rod's lawsuit, he claimed Combs bragged about bribing witnesses and jurors in the '99 shooting case. Shyne also recalled the moment where one of the shooting victims, Natanya Rubin, made renewed claims that it was Combs who shot her in the face that night. The politician in turn spoke out earlier this year to Channel 5 Belize when he reignited the claims that he was the fall guy for the '99 shooting and said Rubin's renewed claims struck a chord with him. He told reporters at the time, "It opens wounds when you hear the victim saying it was Diddy that shot her. That was what was most remarkable." Shyne said Diddy called him after his comments went viral to make sure the two were on the same page. And Shyne told his former mentor, "You know we weren't good. You know you destroyed my life. And if it weren't for you, I would have beaten the case. I would have walked away just like you." While the two appeared like friends or even brothers following their reconciliation, Shyne said that wasn't necessarily the case, and the idea of him changing his tune wasn't rooted in reality. He said when he saw the Cassie video of her being assaulted by Combs back in 2016 was released, Shyne said he had to disassociate himself with Combs and condemn his actions. But now it appears the two are on total different trajectories. Combs, in a matter of months, will face trial for sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy, while Shyne remains the current opposition leader for the House of Belize and seemingly wants to continue on his path of uplifting the people there. The documentary had Combs' attorney slamming the former Bad Boy artist, saying in a statement, "Mr. Combs categorically denies Mr. Barrow's allegations, including any suggestion that he orchestrated Mr. Barrow to take the fall or sacrificed him by directing witnesses to testify against him. These claims are unequivocally false." Mr. Combs was acquitted of all charges related to the 1999 Club New York incident and has consistently maintained his innocence. He cannot accept or condone any characterization of his actions as demonic or malicious. Mr. Combs appreciates the path Mr. Barrow has pursued and wishes him continued success. It is unfortunate that Mr. Barrow has chosen to revisit these allegations. Mr. Combs trusts that responsible journalism will weigh both the established legal outcomes and Mr. Combs' positive, long-standing support for those he has worked with. Lots to discuss about this really eye opening and compelling documentary. So let's bring on attorney and former prosecutor Melba Pearson. Melba, always great to see you. I caught up on the documentary last night, and I truly think it was eye opening in the sense that Shyne has spoken about his case a number of times, and his story has remained the same when it comes to Combs and what happened in 1999. Why do you think it's taken to 2024 after he served nearly a decade in prison? He's already has a new life for himself for people to finally take his story and what happened to him seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad because he has been consistent from the beginning about how he felt he was set up, that he was a sacrificial lamb. But I think people were less willing to hear what he had to say back then because there was still this aura around P. Diddy as, this great star, and he's, you know, releasing all these amazing albums. He's helping so many artists. So people weren't ready to truly believe that there was a darker side to this individual as they are now. And I think if it wasn't for Cassie's very brave lawsuit that kicked this all off in the beginning of this year, Shine's stories probably still would have gone unnoticed. But the fact that Cassie brought to the forefront that there's a really dark, ugly side to this person and had the receipts to back that up, and then little Rod then coming forward with his lawsuit, that definitely was enough to sully the reputation of P. Diddy and get everyone to start thinking like, wait a minute, there's more to the story here. This is not a good person. This is someone who's self-serving, especially someone who is so willing to abuse others for his own entertainment. Now it makes it more likely and more reasonable to believe that he would set somebody up in order to be able to preserve his life, his career, his reputation.
Yeah, and I think it's especially heartbreaking in a way because it feels like Shine did look to Combs as a mentor, especially when he was younger. And then he did throw him under the bus to protect his own skin. He allegedly paid off witnesses. He made sure Johnny Cochran was on his defense team coming off the OJ trial. His bodyguard said he did a chicken ritual before the verdict, and he was ultimately acquitted while Shine was sent off to prison. And given everything that we know now about Combs, are you surprised that even back then, it still kind of rings the same a little bit?
I'm not surprised because, listen, people don't really change that much. They say a leopard can't change his spots. Now, people can evolve and all of that, but there seems to be that continuous thread through all of this, which is that use of power and privilege and position to be able to get whatever outcome you want, whether it is getting an acquittal or, getting access to an underage child to assault. I mean, that it's the same type of behavior, which is incredibly painful, problematic, and traumatic to all of those involved.
And we covered the 99 Club shooting, a number of times on our channel. And I remember things kind of took a turn earlier this year when, Diddy's homes were raided, too, when Natanya Rubin, who was shot in the face during the shooting, came forward again and said it was Combs that was the one who shot her. Then, as you had just mentioned before, 3 was being Lil Rod's lawsuit when it came out. And he alleged Combs bragged about being responsible. And Shine pointed to these moments in the documentary. And he's, has been speaking very publicly about this case for years now. Given all of this, do you think any type of investigation or charges could be revisited as this documentary really kind of incriminates Combs a lot?
Yeah, I don't really see a pathway forward in terms of state level charges because again, this was not a homicide case. This was a shooting, but it wasn't a homicide, and there's a statute of limitations, and so there's that aspect. You also have the fact that now we're looking at 25 years later. Again, you have to find witnesses, you have to try and get new evidence. People move, people pass away, people retire. So being able to get that evidence to be able to put a case together would be an uphill battle. And then on top of the fact that statute of limitations, what are you going to charge him with? Okay, witness tampering. Well, usually that's single digits in terms of statute of limitations, 5, 7 years, something along those lines. Maybe it's witness tampering in a homicide case, you might get a little bit more leeway, but I don't really see a pathway forward there. Now, can some of these allegations maybe come up in his case in chief here with the sexual assaults and the trafficking charges that he's facing now in New York? Possibly. If there is some event that Shyne attended where he saw molestation or rape or some horrible things occurring, he may be able to be a witness to corroborate some of what the victims and survivors are saying. That's a possibility. But I think that unfortunately that chapter is going to be closed for Shyne. But again, I think the key here is, and I'm thinking of Trevor Noah when he was joking about how if you want a case to be solved, you make it a documentary, right? As soon as it becomes a documentary, suddenly everybody gets more interested, and then now more people come forward, etc. I think the documentary will raise awareness and probably embolden other people to come forward. So we don't know at this juncture what additional charges or additional cases may come from the documentary, maybe not necessarily having to do with the 1999 shooting, but maybe something else that had been occurring in his orbit over the course of the last 2 decades.
Yeah, and I can't help but kind of notice also the parallels a little bit when it comes to the prep time, I guess I should say, for the trial. For example, Diddy was accused of bribing witnesses, bribing his driver to say the gun was his back in the early 2000s, right before the trial. Then over now, 2024, and the government is alleging he's kind of doing the same while he's even in federal detention right now, where he is, allegedly making phone calls on other inmates' phones. He's trying to sway other witnesses. Just kind of these parallels that you're seeing in this case. Do you think because he was acquitted in the early 2000s from these charges that he kind of thinks he might get away scot-free now in 2024 or 2025 when his trial actually begins? Do you think that he's thinking that the same old playbook would work in his sex trafficking case?
Absolutely, he's been emboldened. It's the kind of the mindset of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? It's worked for him in the past. It's worked for him his entire career. He's been able to use his money, his position, the ability to quote unquote make or break artists to be able to get whatever it is that he wanted. And so he was able to escape accountability in those charges as a result of witness tampering and all of that. He's trying to do the same thing here, but he's not going to be successful because, again, people basically know what time it is when it comes to him now. People have lost that image of him as being this great and wonderful person. Seeing that there's that chip in his armor, I think more people will be willing to come forward and testify, knowing that there won't be the same ramifications that they experienced or could have experienced in the past.
And I think, as we talk a lot about Shine and what had happened to him, we can't help but not talk about Combs as well too. But I think going back to Shine particularly, it's really commendable how he took what had happened to him and later refueled that energy into what he's become now, this well-established politician in Belize. What are your thoughts about his overall rise, then fall, then rise again?
Listen, life is kind of funny and can give you some kicks that you were not anticipating. And it's the strength of a person, the strength of character is what enables you to get back up from that kick and make something positive of your life. And as a result of the shooting, he was deported to Belize. And if he hadn't been deported, he would not have been able to be on now this trajectory that has him being someone that's well respected, that's a role model, that is able to effectuate change. So he was able to take this really negative experience that would have broken a lot of people. I mean, let's be clear, prison is nothing pleasant, especially if you're in prison for something that you don't feel that you did. And so that period of incarceration can be very detrimental to your mental state, as well as losing that connection with friends, with family, with the community. You're losing job prospects because now you're carrying the banner of being a convicted, someone with a felony conviction. It's hard to get jobs. You may have issues getting housing. So you think about all of those things that could have entrapped him and destroyed his life. He managed to avoid all of that. And being able to rebuild his life in Belize, I think is commendable. And, I think it speaks to his character and who he is as a person.
All right, Melba Pearson, again, thank you so much for your time today. I always appreciate it.
Thank you.
As for Sean Diddy Combs, he remains behind bars in a federal detention center in Brooklyn. He's pleaded not guilty to charges of sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution. And his trial is slated for May of next year. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Milner.